test these balancing beads, which are counteract. And these seem to be pretty popular. I did a bunch of research, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and most of them were related to off-road trucks and that kind of thing with the gigantic wheels. And they use a larger pellet size, I guess. I don't know if these are ceramic or glass, but according to this company, it doesn't make any difference. I mean, there's pluses and minuses, but as far as the theory behind it, any kind of bead, it can be glass, ceramic, metal, copper, steel, and it can also be liquid. So, antifreeze would probably work too, I suppose. That'd be a good thing for up north here. But anyway, I did watch a couple of them that were pretty good. They had described the science behind why it works instead of just saying it works. And that's really kind of important. I've seen a lot of people posting on message boards, motorcycle message boards, where they use the balancing beads and then they say, what a great job they do. But no one's ever really actually tested it. And by that, I mean they never really took a tire that was out of balance, then installed the beads and determined that it actually worked. What they do instead is they just buy a tire, slap the beads in there, and then tell everybody, gee, they work great. Well, here's the deal with motorcycle tires. I would say in the last 50 years, I have never balanced a motorcycle tire. And the reason I don't is because a motorcycle tire profile is quite different. If you look at a standard automotive tire, it's flat across the tread portion. So it's basically got kind of a square design, I guess you could say. I mean, the sidewalls are slightly rounded. The tread is pretty flat, and then it's slightly rounded again. A motorcycle tire has a complete convex profile to it. And if you were to take a cross section, what you would see is the rubber on a motorcycle tire is pretty close to being concentric all the way around, where this is actually thicker on the corners. The inside of this tire would probably match a motorcycle tire as far as the profile. The outside is built up on the corners here to make this flat. So the profile is quite different. And along with that, on a car tire, you have a lot more mass on these outside edges. And when you balance these, you balance both sides, not just the middle. And you look at this one here, which I did balance, there's weights here, and there's weights here. So this is on the inside, this is on the outside. Because what a car tire will do, if it's a balance just in the center and the weights are off on the edges, especially on the front, we won't do this on the rear, but on the front, the tire can waddle back and forth like this, even though it's in balance. So it has that twisting motion. Motorcycle tire won't do that because of its profile. You can balance a motorcycle tire on the center of the tire and you'd be fine. But in the 50 years that I said I never balanced a motorcycle tire, it's because I never had one that was out of balance. I would put them on, drive them, they were fine, so I just left them. And motorcycle tires wheels that I pull off in here, if I pull a 1/4 ounce off of them, that's about all I've ever seen on a motorcycle tire. Very seldom do I see much for weight. So it's not really a good test subject because you can't find a motorcycle tire that's going to be out of balance to the point where you're actually going to detect that out of balance. So what I did with this is I went ahead and used an automotive tire in the front of my trike. These are 175/60/15 tire, and they're inflated to 15.5 pounds. So everything was done the way it was supposed to be done, and I misbalanced it by 1.5 ounces, which is a lot. So I put 1.5 ounces of weights at random in here and made sure that it was out of balance. Then I put the beads in. Actually, I took it out, I put it on my bike, took it for a test drive, and at 45 miles an hour, between 40 and 45, it had a shake, At 62 miles an hour, it was noticeable, quite noticeable. So I knew I had a wheel that was out of balance, and I had a good test subject. So I brought it back in here. I put in 6 ounces of the beads, and then I put it on my spin balancer to see what would happen, and it basically did nothing, which is what I expected. Spin balancer doesn't spin it fast enough to get the beads to migrate properly, and so that kind of was what I expected. And then what I did is I mounted it on my trike, went down the road, and what I found out is it actually improved, but it didn't totally eliminate the shake. I would say it probably took out 80% of it, so it did a pretty good job. At 40 miles an hour, I couldn't really tell anything was different. I mean, it was nice and smooth. At 62 again, which seemed to be the magic number, between 62 and 65, you could feel a shake. It still was like it was before, but about 80% better. So all in all, it was actually pretty good, but not 100%. Like I say, it was about 80%. On a motorcycle, I would say it'd be fine. I mean, you can put the beads on a motorcycle and your bike, it's probably not going to make any difference. You can put the beads in, you can not put the beads in. I think you're going to end up with the same thing. But on a car tire, it did not seem to do it 100%, and there is a reason behind that. In order for the beads to migrate properly, the center of the wheel, the axle portion, actually does have to move, which in itself right there means it's going to transmit that movement to you. But it's that movement that causes the beads to migrate and balance the wheel, or at least attempt to balance the wheel. So you're always going to have a little misbalance, especially initially, which you probably don't notice because it happens as you're accelerating, but it's never going to be 100%. So that was kind of what I determined anyway. The outcome was better than I thought, though. I honestly didn't know if they're going to work or not, and it turned out to be, actually in a way I was a little disappointed because I thought it would work better than it did. So I had kind of high hopes for it, just as a matter of testing. But anyway, that is a proper way to test something, is you have to actually have a problem and then correct the problem. You can't make a change and just say it worked without having a definite goal in mind that you're actually going to solve a problem. So I actually did a video of it. You know, I videoed the 3 steps I took, which was, you know, testing it out of balance, testing it with the beads in, and then retesting after I mounted my original wheel and all that. But the videos really they weren't too impressive. I mean, really, I'm just driving down the road, you don't really see the wheel shake. You know, if I would have had a camera focused on the wheel so you could see it actually moving, would have been one thing, but that did not happen. So instead, I thought I would just do this little video on how this came about. And kind of a crazy thing, I have 2 of these wheels for the next trike I'm going to build. These are Achilles tires, which is a pretty nice tire. And neither one of them out of the pair barely needed any balancing. Here's another thing about balance too, is balancing machines, anything less than 1/4 ounce, it's gonna ignore it. And if you're on a tire this size, if it's a 1/2 ounce, you won't notice anything. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be close, but not 100% perfect. In fact, I have a fine adjustment where I can check. If it says it's 0, I can hit the fine button and it tells me like it's off 0.14 or maybe 0.09 or something like that. So anything under 1/4 ounce, it just zeroes it, because that's well within the non-detectable range. So I guess all in all, I did get it done. And I was really, it was a curiosity with me, just to see if all the hype about this was right or not. So would I recommend? Well, here's my take on it. In fact, I have another video that I'm going to actually insert in this video that I want you to watch that portion of it. It's by a gentleman from, he must be from Europe, someplace. But the wheel he has, he couldn't put it on a balancing machine because of the way the rim is set up. It's a real oddball car. So he used the beads, but he also explained in pretty good explanation of how the balance beads work. So I'm going to actually just use his video rather than hash through the whole thing. So why don't you watch that now? Then I'll come back. We'll come back and we'll talk a little bit more about my recommendation and where I think the beads really are the golden spot to use them.
So how does this bead balancing really works? Now here's a common explanation. You have a heavy spot creating the imbalance, and this heavy spot through its centrifugal forces drags the wheel around. It pulls up the suspension when it goes up and it pulls it down when it goes down. The problem with that is that it's not correct, at least not at higher speeds at which the vibrations in a car typically occur. In reality, a car wheel that causes a high-speed vibration wobbles in exactly the opposite way. Now that's completely counterintuitive, but you can prove in your bathtub that that in fact is true. The only thing you need is a bathtub and a frisbee or a tin of biscuits. Now you put some weights on one side and spin it and see what happens. If you look carefully, you will see that it wobbles and that the heavy spot is actually closer to the center of the rotation. This means it's not the heavy spot that is wobbling and flailing around. It is the other side. And this is because a freely rotating body will always spin around its center of gravity.
Okay, so you got that info. And hopefully that made sense to you, because I thought the guy did a really good job of explaining the way that the tray balances out when it's in the water and that kind of thing. And I think that video was probably one of the best one I had seen as far as taking a wheel that, you know, shook like crazy, and it actually fixed it to the point where the car seemed perfectly fine. So it worked there. So that's one instance where I would say the beads are a must, is in that kind of a situation where you can't really use a balancing machine, a static balancer like I have. Another place is like these monster mud truck wheels that you can't get on a standard balancer because they're just too big. That would probably be a pretty good place, but in general, weights are always going to be the best. There's no way you can balance better than weighting the tire. And like I say, when you put, especially in car tires or truck tires or whatever, you balance both sides of the tire. You've got weights on the inside and the outside. So you prevent the twisting motion, and it's perfectly balanced. You know, if it's a quarter or half ounce heavy on this end, you put a half ounce of weights on the other side, and it's balanced. And that is the only way that I would say you're going to get a perfect balance, or as near perfect as feasible. Like I said, the beads will work. I wouldn't recommend them in general, but I wouldn't say you shouldn't use them. You know, that's up to your discretion. This is just the test I made, and judging by the outcome I had, I don't think I would be 100% satisfied. I'd tolerate it just fine, but I don't think I'd be 100% satisfied. I know when I put my wheels back on, my original tire back on, it was much smoother. I mean, there was no shake. It was perfect. So that is my take on the beads. But like I say, finding a motorcycle tire that is out of balance could be a trick. It's a rare thing. I'd say maybe 1 in 100 maybe would have enough shake where you could actually feel it. So this was a better test.